Let me ask you something. What happens when the most powerful nations on earth set their sights on crushing a single country? When billions of dollars are spent, alliances are forged, secret operations are executed, and the world's most advanced weapons are aimed directly at one target? Logic says that country should fall, its leadership should crumble, and its people should surrender under the weight of unbearable pressure. But what if it doesn't? What if, against every prediction, against every calculation, that nation stands tall year after year, storm after storm? This isn't just a story about politics or international conflict. This is something much deeper. This is about the power of faith over force. This is about how a nation deeply rooted in its history, culture, and unshakable purpose became living proof that no amount of military pressure, no amount of economic sanctions, no amount of covert sabotage can break a people who believe in something greater than fear itself. It's not about missiles, it's not about money, it's about soul. It's about a belief system so deeply entrenched that every attack only fuels more unity, more resilience, more strength. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't the version told in headlines. It's not the narrative you've been fed by politicians and media outlets. This is the painful truth, the hidden reality behind why Israel and America failed to break Iran. And by the time we reach the end, you will understand why, throughout history, faith has always remained the most powerful weapon ever known to man. For decades, the United States and Israel have deployed some of the harshest sanctions and isolation tactics ever witnessed in modern geopolitics against Iran. The strategy was simple: strangle the economy, isolate the leadership, and eventually force the nation to bend its knee. The sanctions targeted Iran's oil exports, banking systems, trade routes, and access to international financial networks. Billions of dollars were blocked. Companies worldwide were threatened with penalties for doing business with Iran, and Iranian assets were frozen globally. The pressure was designed to create internal dissent, economic collapse, and ultimately regime change. Yet, despite this relentless campaign, Iran stood firm. The currency devalued, the economy struggled, but the core leadership and the ideological heartbeat of the nation remained intact. Instead of crumbling under pressure, Iran adapted. The leadership leveraged its internal resources, pivoted to self-reliance, and cultivated new trading partners willing to bypass Western dominance. Throughout these years, Israel and America intensified not just economic sanctions, but also psychological warfare. International forums echoed with accusations, military threats loomed on the horizon, and global media painted Iran as a pariah state. But while the outside world viewed a nation under siege, inside Iran, a different narrative was taking shape. The hardships only deepened the people's sense of resistance. The sanctions that were meant to divide the leadership from its population often had the opposite effect. National pride surged. Many Iranians saw themselves not as victims, but as defenders of sovereignty against foreign domination. Each new sanction became a symbol of resilience, a test of their collective spirit. The leadership understood the psychological battlefield as much as the economic one. They framed the sanctions as an attack not just on a government, but on the entire nation, its culture, and its identity. This narrative resonated deeply with a population that had endured foreign interventions for centuries. America and Israel underestimated the depth of Iran's historical memory, its revolutionary spirit, and its deeply entrenched religious ideology. Sanctions could cripple financial systems, but they could not crush the soul of a nation fueled by purpose. In their attempt to suffocate Iran's economy, they inadvertently forged a stronger, more determined adversary. The very tools designed to dismantle Iran instead became the furnace that hardened its resolve. At the heart of Iran's resilience lies its faith-based leadership, a unique blend of religious authority and political governance that has proven remarkably durable in the face of relentless external pressure. Unlike many secular regimes that rely on shifting political alliances or fragile public approval, Iran's leadership is deeply rooted in a theological foundation that draws its strength from Shia Islam. The concept of wilayat al-faqih, or the guardianship of the Islamic jurist, gives the supreme leader not only political control, but also religious legitimacy. This spiritual authority resonates profoundly with millions of Iranians who view their leadership as divinely sanctioned, not merely elected or imposed. In this structure, political decisions are not seen as mere strategies, but as expressions of a divine mission, creating a sense of unbreakable purpose that transcends material consequences. This religious foundation acts as a powerful shield against the psychological warfare waged by external enemies. While sanctions target financial systems and military strikes aim at physical assets, the ideological backbone rooted in faith remains untouched. The leadership's constant framing of their struggle as a battle between the forces of truth and oppression further galvanizes public support. It transforms political confrontation into a moral obligation for the masses, elevating the conflict to a spiritual plane. The sacrifices made by the population under sanctions, hardship, and threats are not seen as mere economic suffering, but as acts of religious devotion and national duty. The influence of this faith-based leadership extends far beyond Iran's borders. It inspires a network of regional allies who share similar ideological or religious beliefs. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias in Iraq and Syria see themselves as part of the same larger struggle, with Iran's leadership serving as a spiritual and strategic center. This ideological coherence allows Iran to project its influence far beyond its size or economic power, creating a sphere of resistance that often outmaneuvers Western diplomatic and military strategies. Attempts by America and Israel to destabilize or overthrow this leadership fail repeatedly because they miscalculate the depth of its religious legitimacy. It is not simply a matter of removing one leader or party. It is an entrenched system that derives its strength from centuries of religious tradition, martyrdom, and collective memory of oppression. This unwavering ideological conviction makes Iran's leadership not only resilient, but capable of turning every challenge into renewed resolve. While America and Israel concentrated their efforts on isolating Iran diplomatically and economically, they underestimated Tehran's ability to expand its regional influence in ways that bypass conventional power structures. Iran's strategic vision was never confined within its own borders. Instead, it focused on creating a network of alliances and partnerships across the Middle East that would serve as both a shield and a sword against its adversaries. In Iraq, after the fall of Saddam Hussein, Iran skillfully leveraged its religious and political connections to cultivate powerful allies within the new government and among various militia groups. In Syria, during the civil war, Iran became a crucial lifeline for Bashar al-Assad, providing military support, advisors, and financial assistance that ensured the survival of the regime, which in turn preserved a key strategic ally. In Lebanon, Iran's support of Hezbollah transformed the group into one of the most powerful non-state military forces in the world, capable of challenging Israeli military operations and projecting Iranian influence directly to Israel's borders. In Yemen, Iran's backing of the Houthi rebels opened another front, threatening Saudi Arabia and disrupting critical shipping routes, thereby extending its strategic reach. These alliances are not mere opportunistic arrangements. They are deeply embedded partnerships rooted in shared ideology, mutual interests, and years of coordinated struggle against common enemies. Each partner serves as a node in a broader network that allows Iran to challenge the superior conventional military power of America and Israel through asymmetric means. This regional web of influence also provides Iran with a form of strategic depth that makes direct attacks against it far more complicated and risky. Any aggression against Iran risks igniting multiple proxy fronts, forcing its adversaries to confront not a single nation, but a sprawling resistance axis spread across several countries. Iran's ability to operate through proxies allows it to inflict costs on its enemies without exposing itself directly to overwhelming retaliation. Furthermore, this network amplifies Iran's voice in regional politics, enabling it to shape events far beyond its own territory. America and Israel, despite their superior military and economic power, find themselves entangled in a region where Iran's influence is deeply entrenched. The more they attempt to isolate Iran, the more Tehran seems to extend its reach. Instead of breaking Iran's regional power, the continuous confrontations have allowed it to refine its strategies, solidify its alliances, and become an indispensable player in every major conflict zone across the Middle East. Throughout the years, America and Israel have not only imposed sanctions and diplomatic isolation on Iran, but also engaged in covert operations designed to cripple its most vital capabilities. High-profile assassinations, cyber attacks, and sabotage missions have been executed with the clear objective of weakening Iran's military leadership, disrupting its nuclear program, and sending a psychological message of vulnerability. The assassination of General Qasem Soleimani was perhaps the most significant of these actions. As the architect of Iran's regional proxy network, Soleimani's death was intended to decapitate Iran's strategic operations and create disarray among its allies. Yet, instead of collapsing, Iran responded with a calculated display of defiance, launching missile strikes against American bases in Iraq and solidifying national unity in the face of external aggression. Similarly, the targeted killings of nuclear scientists like Mohsen Fakhrizadeh and the Stuxnet cyber attack aimed at disabling Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities were meticulously designed to halt its technological progress. But each strike, while momentarily disruptive, only fueled a stronger determination within Iran to advance its capabilities independently. These operations hardened the resolve of both the leadership and the scientific community, who viewed every attack not as a setback, but as evidence of their adversaries' desperation. Rather than abandoning its nuclear ambitions, Iran expanded its enrichment activities, diversified its technological pathways, and fortified its security protocols. These covert operations had unintended consequences beyond the targeted disruptions. Every assassination, every act of sabotage, served to strengthen the Iranian public's perception of being under unjust and relentless assault. This perception unified the population around their leadership and deepened the collective narrative of resistance against foreign oppression. Far from creating internal divisions or fostering rebellion, these actions often backfired, producing waves of patriotism and martyrdom that reinforced Iran's ideological foundation. America and Israel's reliance on covert operations also revealed their inability to engage Iran through conventional means without provoking widespread regional conflict. These indirect attacks were calculated to avoid full-scale war, but carried the risk of escalation with every strike. Iran, understanding the constraints of its adversaries, skillfully managed its responses to demonstrate both its capability and restraint. Instead of being weakened by these operations, Iran adapted, evolved, and emerged more resilient, showcasing an extraordinary ability to turn each loss into a new source of strength and defiance against overwhelming odds. Faced with some of the most severe economic sanctions in modern history, Iran demonstrated an extraordinary level of adaptability and internal development that surprised even its most determined adversaries. The sanctions targeted nearly every aspect of its economy. Oil exports were slashed, foreign investment vanished, international banking connections were severed, and major industries faced extreme restrictions. Yet, instead of complete economic collapse, Iran gradually shifted its focus inward, building alternative pathways for survival and growth. Domestic industries that had long been dependent on foreign parts and expertise were forced to innovate, leading to significant advancements in local manufacturing, agriculture, and technology. Iranian scientists and engineers developed homegrown solutions to circumvent shortages in medicine, aviation parts, and industrial equipment, gradually reducing reliance on foreign imports. One of the most striking examples of Iran's adaptability has been its ability to maintain and even expand its nuclear technology under heavy restrictions. Despite relentless international efforts to halt its nuclear program, Iran developed advanced enrichment capabilities using indigenous resources and expertise. At the same time, the country explored new markets for its oil and gas, turning eastward to countries like China and India, negotiating barter deals and alternative payment systems that allowed it to keep vital exports flowing. Underground networks and complex financial mechanisms emerged to bypass traditional banking sanctions, enabling Iran to continue conducting international trade despite being largely cut off from the global financial system. Iran's internal development was not limited to its economy. Sanctions inadvertently encouraged a broader culture of self-reliance that permeated many aspects of society. Educational institutions emphasized scientific research and innovation, while government policies prioritized local production and entrepreneurship. This economic resistance was framed not just as a matter of survival, but as a form of national dignity, further fueling public support for the government's defiant stance against Western pressure. Furthermore, Iran's leadership used the sanctions as a political tool, portraying them as evidence of Western hostility toward the Iranian people, rather than simply targeting the government. This narrative fostered a sense of unity and collective struggle, with many Iranians viewing their economic hardships as sacrifices made in defense of national sovereignty and religious values. Instead of fracturing the nation, the sanctions inadvertently strengthened Iran's internal cohesion, making the country more resilient to future external pressures and less dependent on the very international systems designed to contain it. Iran's resilience is deeply anchored in the powerful force of cultural and national identity, which has been shaped over centuries through a unique blend of history, religion, and shared struggle. This identity is not easily shaken by external pressures or foreign interventions. The Iranian people carry a long memory of resisting foreign domination, from ancient empires that once ruled vast territories to more recent confrontations with Western powers seeking to control their resources and dictate their politics. This historical consciousness fosters a collective sense of pride that is far more powerful than temporary political or economic setbacks. The Islamic Revolution of 1979 was not just a political shift, but a profound cultural awakening that redefined what it meant to be Iranian, intertwining national identity with Shia Islamic ideology in a way that has endured through decades of adversity. This strong sense of identity allows Iran's leadership to rally its population in times of crisis, framing external aggression as attacks not only on the government, but on the very soul of the nation. Cultural symbols of martyrdom, sacrifice, and resistance are deeply embedded in the Iranian psyche, drawing from religious narratives like the tragedy of Karbala, where standing firm in the face of overwhelming oppression is seen as a moral and spiritual victory, regardless of material consequences. This narrative resonates across generations, creating a population that is prepared to endure hardship as a badge of honor rather than a cause for surrender. The power of this cultural unity extends into the arts, literature, and even modern political discourse, where themes of resistance and self-determination are celebrated. Iranian films, poetry, and public speeches frequently invoke historical and religious imagery that reinforce the narrative of defiance. This cultural fabric binds diverse segments of the population, from urban intellectuals to rural religious communities, into a shared mission of defending the nation's independence and values against foreign domination. America and Israel's strategies often fail to account for the depth of this national identity. Economic pain and international isolation, while significant, are filtered through a lens of historical victory.